Supporting Saints Block Party podcast. Adam here with Wolf and our guy Cody Alexander of Match Quarters and also Field Vision. If you are new to our podcast, if you haven't heard an episode that Cody has been on, Coach Cody, let me put some respect on Cody's name.
Please do.
Please, please go back and listen to those previous episodes, especially the episode we had him on last, where he came on, really got into the nitty and gritty, breaking down Brandon Staley, the new defensive coordinator for the Saints defense and his schemes and his concepts. We wanted to get Cody on and kind of go over. The Saints had a draft class. They had a draft class last week. There's nine new players on the team that they added, and just get Cody's impression, his thoughts of some of the prospects, some of the players of the that the Saints drafted, how they fit into the team, all that. But before we doing that, just want to catch up with Cody, see how you're doing, and just see overall what were your just general thoughts and impressions overall of the NFL draft. It doesn't even have to be Saints related.
Yeah, I think the quarterback situations were really big. Everyone's talking about Shadur. Nobody's talking about Quinn Ewers and the way. I mean, dude, he's the number one recruit in his class, and then falls all the way down to almost sixth round. I mean, the Shadur thing, I think, is just because it's Deion Sanders' son, and there's so much, just a lot around it. But like the quarterback drafting, I think, kind of highlighted where the NFL is moving, where if you're not going to be a starter, we're not drafting you in the first couple rounds. Like you're going to fall. You're going to fall, and you're going to fall for a long ways. I thought that was really interesting. Don't ask me what the Browns are doing. I have no idea. That was insane. With doing Dylan Gabriel in the third round was a choice,
Wild.
and then you then you add Shadur later. So that was interesting.
Traded a pick to move up to get Shador.
Yeah, and then you draft. Yeah, so that was a little interesting. I thought too the injured corners. So Will Howard, Will Howard moving down, and then also Siobhan Ravel, Quincy Riley. Some of those guys that were like right there at the edge ended up dropping pretty far. So I thought, for the most part, there was a big run on defensive line in the first round. Again, secondary guys starting to get pushed down, and that especially at safety, I thought it was really interesting. So those were kind of just the things I observed during the draft.
You mentioned Saints pick Quincy Riley. What was your initial thoughts when he got drafted by the Saints? Because he was a name I wasn't really familiar with. So
I actually have a random close tie to Riley. A good friend of mine is Steve Ellis, who is the DB coach at Louisville, and also recruited him to Middle Tennessee State. He said nothing but great things about him. In fact, he's the same guy that found Siobhan Ravel at ECU.
Wow.
He mentored Trevarius Ward. Reed Blankenship for the Eagles is another guy that he found. So when he says a guy's good, I usually trust him when he says it. Quincy Riley had an injury. I don't know if you're aware of that, but he had an injury. That's why he didn't run. He only ran 140 at the combine. Ran a 4.4. This is a kid that's like a 10.4, so he's probably like a 4.3 kid. Had that injury. What availability is a question, so that's probably why he dropped a little bit. But this is a kid that probably should have been a high second round pick, ended up not. So seasoned vet. He's one of those COVID kids that's been around football for a long time, developed in. So he's probably plug and play once he gets into camp, in terms of, you're not going to have to, this is how we work. This is what we do. Like, it'll be pretty much like he's a worker. So the connection to him is Terry Joseph, who's the DB coach for the Saints, is a friend of Coach Ellis's. And so that's where that information probably came from. So when he landed with the Saints, I wasn't very surprised.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how would you say for Riley, like his traits may fit into Staley's defense and what he's looking for out of his secondary players?
Yeah. He's not a tall corner. He's not like one of those like 6'2" corners. He's a zone corner. He's playing the zone scheme pretty much his entire career. So I feel like he fits pretty much what you're looking for in a corner in terms of that, with Brandon Staley, of just playing zone, being able to play on and off ball. He can play man, kind of that whole. He's kind of a toolsy guy in that sense. Has been around a couple different systems. So to me, that's kind of where you look at with him and his fit.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't find like a ton of video on him, but like what I did see, he had like pretty like really good ball skills. He'd stick his foot in the dirt and go, and like he's attacking that ball and the player. Like he's attacking both, and I like to see that. Just like
Yeah.
it's one of the things I like to look for. But other than that, I couldn't find much. So it's good to hear. You were kind of familiar with them and all the connections, how it leads back, and because that's important. I think
Yes.
us as fans don't really realize it, but it's important when somebody puts a rubber stamp and say this guy's a good guy, hard
Yeah.
worker, this and that. That clears a lot of things that coaches have to try to figure out going through this whole draft process. And when they could get that because their buddy or their guy they grew up with
Yeah.
coached them, at some point, oh man, it's like just a checkbox that you can say, okay,
Yep.
I know this guy's good to go.
What
Yep.
we
You know the work ethic, all that stuff.
we talked about a little bit, talking about it with the Eagles last time Coach Cody was on, right? Of just how the Eagles find players for their secondary of like players that it just seems like with last year with their draft picks, they just fit into Vic Fangio schemes like a glove, and that was with Howie and their scouting department talking to going to Iowa and going to where did Quinion Toledo? No, that's not Toledo.
Toledo,
It was
another
Toledo, right?
zone heavy defense. Yeah.
So it's just those things. If you look at the Saints draft class, it was very seen as like meat and potatoes. And me and Ryan were kind of having this conversation recently when we were talking about it, in that they had another draft class very similar to this in 2023, and that draft class really hasn't seemed to fare well. Um, I I'm trying to be semi optimistic and not be kind of Debbie Downerish like evaluating this draft class, right? Because when I squint and I look, I can kind of see like the vision of like in theory of what it should look like. You take a quarterback in Tyler Shook at 40, who, if you look at his film, pressure is not his forte, nor is it for any quarterback's forte, but especially not for him. In the first round, they go Kelvin Banks, who were they were there were a lot of players on their board that was offensive line heavy anyway. So you're trying to fortify the offensive line, which they've been doing for years and seasons of so many picks in the offensive line. How, as a coach, could you maybe explain to our listeners of maybe, and obviously you're not Kellen Moore, but maybe try to maybe explain maybe what the Saints are trying to build potentially with their draft picks?
Yeah, I think so first off, the quarterback pick and just in general, that's a guy, again, another COVID guy, another guy that's been in a pro style system. He worked under Jeff Brom. Go do the homework on Brom. I went and visited Louisville last week. I was there for 2 days, visiting with defensive staff. Actually got time to sit down with Coach Brom. He's awesome. He's phenomenal, by the way. There are not a lot of offensive head coaches that want to sit in a defensive meeting and talk ball. He did. Go look at his track record. I think he's had like six. I saw something. He's had six quarterbacks
Yeah.
drafted into the NFL, all relatively successful. So you're getting a kid. I think to me, what this is this is yes, it's a second round pick, but this is a safe pick. That if you have to start games with this is a mature kid. He's married. He's stayed 6 years in college. He comes from a pro style system. To me, that's not sexy. That's not going to get us a bunch of clicks on this talking about it, right? But what it is going to do is it's going to win you football games if you have to win some football games. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all trying. And then the Banks deal in first round, I had this. I was talking to because the Jets kind of did the same thing. They ended up taking a tackle. Do you need a tackle? Do you not? To me, what that is anytime you can get a premier tackle, you take them. Like, because first round, if you go and look, first round tackles typically hit. Well, they may not be all stars, they might not be all pros, they may not be Hall of Famers, but you're talking about if you take a first round tackle, you know you will probably have him for 10 years. And what I think that allows them to do is detach Pennings from tackle and let's move him into guard because he's a mauler. That's where he should be playing anyway. So to me, it kind of cleans up that. You now have the quarterback situation kind of figured out. You have, you still have Rattler, you still have Carr if he's going to be there, if he's not, but you have a kid that you feel like, look, he is mature and he's going to be the adult in the room. And if we need to, put him out there, and maybe hold off for next year or whatever we're going to do and figure it out, we can at least win some games with him.
Be competitive.
Yeah,
Compete, baby.
compete.
Which
I
is
mean, because that's it. Look, we talked about this before. I mean, to win the NFC South, it's like winning the AFC South. You just have to win 9 games. If you can win 9 games, then you're probably in the playoffs. And so now you've got a shot. And anything can happen in the playoffs. So if you can do that, I think that's the goal. I know that that's kind of like looking at it silver lining wise, but I think that's where you don't not take a tackle in the first if he falls to you, and then you have a quarterback that you can probably potentially start. He has a high floor, maybe low ceiling, but that floor, maybe you can push that up a little bit.
Yeah, you said it perfectly because that's the pretty much the mantra of Mickey Loomis. He feels like, hey, the division's right there for the taking. Let's go get it. We, we could fuss about that a lot on this podcast because we just feel like you should want more. You should
Yeah,
want
you should
more
want
than
12 wins a year, right? No,
yeah.
I'm
You
with
should
you. I'm
you
with you.
should want to be where the Eagles were last year.
Right.
Like,
Where,
100%.
where, the,
but
where, the, where the Chiefs have been the last couple of years.
Yes.
right,
Yes.
right. But look, it kind of is what it is, and we analyze it. But the thing about Shuck that I've grown to. I've watched a lot. I mean, I've watched a lot of him the last couple of days, just trying to.
I got to hit up Cody and get the all 22 because it's just hard to
Yeah,
find on YouTube
it's
of
it's
Shuck,
hard to
man.
find. It's really hard to find, man. Like you got to watch like other people's breakdowns of him to find like
Hmm.
I find everything I could, and just watching him, like trying to get to know him, the person, watching a lot of his interviews and something like that. Seems like a very sharp, mature guy, like you said. Very, I think he'll fit in well, like in New Orleans, is just like a personable guy. I don't think he'll have the problems like Derek Carr did. I think the fans will like him. Um, so it's going to be interesting for him. He has the arm talent. There's no question about that. The arm talent is there. He's big. He's 6'5". That's a trait. Like, say what you
Like a
want,
like a
but
legit 6'5".
right. Like I look, we've come up with Drew Brees. Love Drew Brees. Like he's my goat, but he is an outlier. Like you won't see many.
Yes.
Like, what I'm saying? But being 6'5", being able to see the field, like that is a true trait that coaches love. And so you can see it. And with that arm talent, it's tantalizing. So I could completely understand why Kellen Moore, and then you get to know the player. I could completely understand why he was like, man, look, let's go. Let's go with him. I need a quarterback. I'm on a new team. Let's go. It's just that pressure thing though, boy. Like that's
Yeah.
that's like a major thing for quarterbacks. And I've been wondering for days is can that be fixed? Because I went and watched what I could find of him at Oregon and at TTU. He played with a little more fearlessness, a lot more fearlessness, I would say, before he got all those injuries. And I don't know if Brown coached him at Louisville to, just get rid of the ball. Look, if you feel like some pressure's coming, throw it away. He had the most throwaways of any quarterback in college football last year. I'm just wondering, like, is that something you can overcome? Have you seen like quarterbacks overcome that, especially from the injury standpoint? Because obviously that sticks in your head over time.
Injury is a thing. That if it's an injury thing, then that's mental. That's probably
Yep.
something that you got to actually work through therapy. I know that sounds crazy, but like that is
No, it
something
doesn't
that
at all. We
yeah. Yeah, so to me, like that, but in terms of the best example of that's probably Jared Goff. I mean, when he went to the Lions, it was like, and the whole deal was like, go back and watch those Miami tapes. Flores had him seeing ghosts, and then all of a sudden, he becomes one of the better quarterbacks against the blitz. And I think a lot of it has to do with offensive structure. College is a little bit different. It could just have been where, in college, a lot of times you don't really want to throw to your running back. And so it's like that check down in the NFL is much different than the check down at the college level. So now having a little bit different offenses, maybe having a different structure within that. Hey, this is more where we're supposed to go. It could just be that. So to me, I think it can be something that you grow out of that comes with confidence. If it's an injury issue, sometimes guys don't come back from that. It's just one of those things where some guys don't come back, some guys do from an injury.
how would you just because that to me like the Shuck pick is like the one like kind of just holds everything together this draft class. of how he fits into Kellen Moore's potential system of what potentially we expect Kellen, or what you maybe expect Kellen Moore's system to be now that he has kind of full reign as a head coach of his offensive system.
Yeah, I think it'll go back to. I know that people here in Dallas, especially, you could really see that there was a lot of mark of like the Mike McCarthy system. But then even when he went to the Eagles, I really didn't see much of an expansion other than you add in some more four open looks just because that's what the Eagles offense was designed to do. I thought they had a good 12 personnel package. He featured the tight end well. I thought that was good. But you didn't get the running back passes. Look, Saquon Barkley was a traditional running back last year. As crazy as that sounds, he's one of the best route running. I mean, him and McCaffrey are like two peas in a pod. When McCaffrey's healthy and is running a full route tree, and then when Saquon, obviously, what he can do in running, I mean, those are your two best modern backs in the NFL right now. And I thought that's something that having Kamara, another guy that can run the full route tree,
Hmm.
that might be a different thing that you see. So what is a little different from what I've been looking at? It could be, hey, we're probably not going to see a bunch of Alvin Kamara lining up out at receiver and running a full route tree and then being super involved in the passing game.
Oh, well, go ahead, Adam.
No, I don't have anything, bro.
No, it's just because that's just kind of like the bane of our existence the last couple of years. Because under Sean Payton, Alvin Kamara did it all. He
Yeah.
lined at every wide receiver spot. The jerk routes, the Texas routes from out the backfield, and all that stuff would destroy linebackers constantly. Now, obviously, he's lost a step or two
Yeah.
over the years, but even like last year, you could still see it, man. Like he could still burn you when he gets in that space. But it just seems like coaches just don't do it. Like whether it was Clint Kubiak or Pete Carmichael, it was just like, what is going on? So it sounds like Kellen Moore is just gonna be the next one. Just like,
I didn't mean to rain on your parade, but yeah,
no,
I
man, this is good stuff. Like this is what we want to know.
I was just gonna say, what are maybe some of the traits that Shuck has that will go well in Kellen Moore's offensive system?
Well, I think quick processing, yeah, he may not be able with blitzes in there on some of these drawback passes, he may bail out of there pretty quickly. I think even to that extent, you talk about that is that he's not trying to throw interceptions. He's not a gunslinger. This isn't a guy that's going to come in and throw, like a Jameis Winston who's going to go 30 touchdowns, but he's also going to throw 30 picks. This is a guy that's going to protect the ball. Sometimes that game management tag sometimes gets thrown around as a kind of something that's not great. But hey, let's be honest. The best quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, is essentially has been reduced to a game manager just because
Lately,
of that
yeah.
offense and what defenses are doing, and then also his receiving core. So I think efficiency and being an efficiency monster is good. I think that's what you see. Intermediate passing, very accurate. He understands the pro style offense because he's not afraid. He can work within a reduced formation. That was something, man. My buddy Coach Ellis, I go back to him. He was sending me clips of what they were doing in spring practice at Louisville. Like, I don't want to defend that. It's like a bunch of like stacks, bunches, tights, bunch of cross routes. It looks just like an NFL offense with the college hashes, which makes it even worse. So I think
Yeah.
he's that comfortability of I'm not. This isn't one of those where, like, if Jackson Dart let's say the Giants don't trade up, Jackson Dart falls to the Saints, they take him. Okay, well, he's probably a year off. He needs to go in. He's been working half field. He hasn't been doing pass protections. He doesn't know really, hey, when I get this look, I need to actually check it down. Like reading some of these things that NFL offenses are used to, this is something that he already has. So I go back to this was a safe pick in the second round because this is going to be, like I said, an adult in the room, high floor. So there's not a lot of I don't have to teach a bunch of different things to him. He's going to show up every day and work. And I think that's kind of where you look at a situation like that. Okay, maybe he probably should have been a third rounder, but I get when I see what's with the Saints and where they see themselves as an organization and what that looks like.
Talk about Shuck.
Yeah.
You want else you want Here,
Oh man,
Cody.
I mean, look, the Saints got 9 picks, man. First of all, I couldn't believe they stood pat and drafted 9 players. Like, you talk
Nine
about a
players. Yep.
team
Yeah.
that trades up, that trades future picks. So they stood pat, and they took Vernon Broughton out of Texas, a player I wasn't really familiar with at all. Seems like a stout, just a stout
Hmm.
defensive tackle. Played a long time, a lot of snaps over the years. Like, what were your thoughts on him if you know anything about him?
Well, this is another one that has a connection with the staff at the Saints. Bo Davis
Bo
coached him
Davis.
at the beginning of his career. So this is a familiarity thing with him. He has you talk about traits. He has
Yeah.
prototypical NFL
Yes.
size. He is 6'5", 311, very athletic. This is your quick three. I don't think you put him at nose. I don't think he's going to live at nose. But this is your quick three. Bo Davis was his coach, knows how he works. When you watch him, he's very slithery. He gets off of blocks. He may not be a sack monster, but he's going to get that internal push that you're looking for. You can put him at a 3 technique. You can put him at a 4-eye within Staley's 5-man fronts, and he's going to give you a little bit of a push. And so I think that was probably one of those where Davis was like, hey, if we got a guy that I know and I feel like he's athletic. I mean, because look, if you can, the way that you watch him, because one of the knocks on him, like if you read some of the stuff about him, he has these skinny ankles, these kind of skinny legs.
He does have some really
Yes.
skinny ass legs, man.
Right. He looks. This sounds great. So I've done recruiting before. Obviously, the skinny ankle stuff is he looks like a tackle. He looks like an offensive tackle, but
Yeah, he
he's
kind of
obviously
does.
yes, but he's a little bit more athletic than that. And I always try to tell people all the time, like the more like why is a guy at 6'5", 311 not playing offensive tackle? It's because he's either like a total like dirtbag, like he's just mean as hell, he's a problem, or he's way too athletic. Like he's like running back in high school type guy. Like he's getting that's typically the guys that either because that's the running joke in the coaching community is that your corner room and your D tackle room are the worst rooms. Like those
The worst.
And
Scumbags.
yes.
that's how I want it.
Yes, but that's how you want it. That's look. You want to have your corner room being the most arrogant people that you can meet because
Yes.
they're running backwards. So
They
you
have
want
to be.
And then D tackles, I mean, there is no like. It's just like there's no love for the O line. Your D tackle, there is no love, man. And so like
None.
those guys are that's the thing. But so he is when you watch him, he's super athletic. Now he wasn't a starter all like the whole time. He was actually a starter. But look at the talent that the Texas has actually had come out in that D line. So to me, that's not a knock. I mean, I always find that interesting because we've been watching these Alabama and Georgia players come out when they're juniors and seniors, and they have only had 1 year or maybe a year and a half of starting, and we're like, that's not a knock on those guys. Well, it's because if you're producing NFL talent, you shouldn't be starting as a sophomore. So to me, I think that's where he comes in. That you have that tie. He's athletic. He gives you some mobility at that 3 spot, whether you're in a 5-man front or you're in that 4 down.
It's going to be interesting to see once OTAs, all this picks up, how Vernon Brighton and Gotchaw, who they traded for from New England, kind of fit together in the 5-man front. They still have Brian. Obviously, they still have Brian Bresee. They have Nathan Shepard. They have Saunders. Like someone's getting like that. That's a full defensive. And the most interesting player, like to me, that they drafted last year, who is a true nose, is Christian Boyd from last year, who like got no playing time, but this current coaching staff has no ties to him whatsoever.
Right.
From Northern Illinois. Yeah. Right. No. Maybe.
Yeah. Big tackle. Yeah. I think in this system, it might be he might end up being a practice squad player just because you have Gottschalk, who's probably going to be your true nose. You're probably going to carry one nose on your roster. But you always keep away because I mean it could be just as well that he doesn't end up finishing injury, whatever. Look, football's a game of attrition, but I do think I think what will help too is like these 5-man fronts. I think will help Brian Bresee, where you don't have to play a 5. You're not moving him around. You're playing right on top of the guard the whole time, which is what he did. Which is what he did at Clemson, is basically being a destroyer of guards. You're not moving around. You don't have to worry about him playing nose. Okay, they changed the strength. Now you're in nose. Okay, now, play a different technique, or now I'm taking on double teams. Now he's going to be able to have manufacture one-on-ones, which I think will only help that. I do think they do, like, to me, Young and Granderson are more four-man front guys,
Yeah.
but Staley had those guys, in LA that were
Right.
Yeah.
basically four-down guys. So I mean, to me, I think that it's a good fit.
No, that's interesting. That's something I was wondering about how Brian Brzee would fit into this Brian Staley defense. Couple of another guy that he's got who I wasn't familiar with, who after watching him I like I kind of like is it what how do you pronounce it, Jonas
Jonas.
Jonas
Jonas
Sanker,
Anchor.
the safety. Were you familiar with him? Have you seen any of him?
Virginia runs his zone. When you start digging into this, he's a special team standout, which you're going to have to be in that safety room because you're not going to start. And then big zone safety, which
Yep.
that's exactly what. So to me, it's like special teamer zone safety. Oh, okay, makes sense. Like I get it. He's got typical prototypical size. He's 6 foot 205. So I mean, he can play down near the box. Athletic kid. He tested out really well. That's the one thing that you'll find out with all of these kids. Like I put in my notes, like athletic, athletic, athletic. Like they went after they knowing that some of these guys are going into positions where they may not necessarily have to play right away. At least we got an athlete. It's not a kid that like, well, he's really instinctual. Well, that doesn't necessarily like your floor's so high already, but then you can't push any further because of talent. So I think when you look at that, he fits what they're trying. He can play, but either safety, he can play down, he can play back, which is what you want in this system.
A player that Ryan just doesn't see it with is Danny Stutzman, linebacker, Oklahoma. And I watched the little breakdown of him, and former GM, I want to say the Vikings, Rick Spielman, compared him to Pete Warner, and Ryan was like, that's why,
That's why I don't like him.
I put in my notes coverage linebacker backup Werner. That's what I put in my notes. So I mean, he's a, he's a tackling machine. He's a potential maybe to eventually. When you watch him at Oklahoma, he plays in the box. He's a hard work. He's gonna be there. The one thing that you have to understand is like you guys have been so used to like a Demario Davis, who has just basically been a Pro Bowl contender for about a decade, right? And so when you get a Werner, who you're like, okay, but go look at these Fangio adjacent systems. They just now Zach Bond is a different case, but
that they had.
Not to throw salt on
Zach,
the wound.
Zach Bond is a different case that they had on the roster for 4 years.
But the linebacker position is more of a just, hey, can you hold this spot down? If you can hold this spot down and you're athletic enough to play at the NFL level and like you can make tackles when you're required to do so, then okay, we're fine. I mean, because you look at even the Rams, they moved off Ernest Jones, everybody's like, what? Obviously, there was something going on behind the scenes, but that was one of those deals where it was like, well, he went to essentially a similar type system, and he looked really, really good with the Seahawks. Well, I think in this system, and too, that's part of it, is like, hey, just give me a guy that I can put. I'm more worried about what's up these five guys up front, and I'm more worried about the five guys behind them, and then we'll figure out the linebacker spot. Because I guarantee you, half the time it'll be Demario Davis out there, or switching off with Werner with that solo backer, and not a lot of times where you see these tandem backers.
Right, and I mean one thing I noticed just looking at the entire draft class, it looked like I don't know if they did this purposely or not, but it looked like they built up the middle of their defense, whether that's defensive tackle, linebacker, safety, just through and throughout. Cornerback is still a question for the Saints. You got Kool-Aid McKinstry, coming off his rookie year. Alante Taylor, who is still kind of searching for a true position. We know it's not outside corner. You got they re-signed Isaac Yadam, who's a fine backup cornerback. It's just not much else. It's like you listen to hope that Quincy Riley, who they just drafted, it's going to be a rookie. Rookie cornerbacks. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. You just never know. So obviously Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
I'm sorry. You hit a home run
No,
with Kool-Aid McKinstry. I really think Kool-Aid will end up being pretty good.
I mean, that's the hope. They really need him to because I'm just wondering, with Brandon Staley, how is he going to implement this? From his standpoint, when you got a pretty young secondary, you got a very veteran defensive line, a veteran linebacker group. How are you going to like build this thing? That's what I'm so
It,
fascinated to
it'd
see.
be nice if we, not saying that I would expect it, but to see what the Chargers did last season with, with Jesse Minter, and they hit on like their fifth round
Yeah.
cornerbacks and how well they played. They had Henley in the building for a couple of years already, and then he like kind of busted out last year. Like that would be the hope, right? Not
Yeah.
saying that that's going to happen for the Saints, but that's
I
like the
do.
hope.
I do think the nickel position with Alontae Taylor is a little bit of a, let's press pause. They didn't really address it. I think they're probably going to live with it. I mean, he showed flash. I mean, he had that one game where he had like the 4 sacks or whatever. I mean, he can play. I do think if you look at what's the biggest difference, if you're asking, like, what's the biggest difference between Staley and Fangio, obviously coming behind Fangio and kind of playing that. He does not mind playing more match coverage, more man coverage. So I think in year one, you probably lean into the fact that that's what the Saints have been doing. That's who's on the
Right.
roster. Yedem can play man. We know that. He's not bad. I mean, he's not the best at it, but he's also not terrible, right? It's not like he's getting ran by. I think don't be surprised if Quincy Riley pushes that for that spot. Because I do feel like you got probably a second round corner, like a Kool-Aid McKinstry in the fourth round, just due to some of the things around him and just kind of where the corner position got pushed down. It was a weird year for corners. They all essentially all got pushed down. So I think to me that's where you want it. And you go back to building through the middle. I think that's a new trend in the NFL. I think NFL teams are starting to figure out interior defensive line probably need to pay him. Those are your aliens.
Yeah.
It's kind of like receiver. Edges are like the receivers of defense. You can probably go find a fourth round edge that will give you 10 sacks, right? Like you can probably manufacture that. It's really hard. Go talk to the Panthers what it was like without having Derek Brown last year.
Brown.
Ooh.
Historically
Bad run
yes,
defense.
and they lose Josie Jewell about halfway through the season, and it was just like, okay, we literally can't stop the run, so it doesn't matter at all. They were having to do things like actually like quit playing from their too high shell, like actually put guys down there. They had to live in a 5-man front because otherwise, how do you survive? So I think, like to your point, that's where that's a good thing. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that that's the way that you get it. Corners and edges you typically want to collect, right? You just, hey, we're going to draft an edge every year. We're going to draft a corner. Sometimes we draft a few of them if they fall into place where we need them, just positional value wise. So that to me is you just swing at those positions. But when you get a dude, like I said, with the tackle, like or an offensive guard or a center, and you can draft him in the late first or early second, especially interior offensive line, you take him. D-tackle, you take them. Just because those guys are aliens. Those guys don't exist in the normal world at the same rate as some of these other positions.
And speaking of the middle of the defense, Kelly Moore kind of banged the table to go and get Justin Reed out of KC, and he's another guy who, even though he plays safety, he can come up so quick and be a point in that run game. And look, the Saints' run defense has just gotten worse and worse, like over the past 3 years, to the point last year it just was non-existent. Where I knew if the team they were facing had any semblance of a run game, it was over. Like you just wasn't gonna. It was over. Like it didn't even have to be like a scary running back. It was just like, oh, they about to just run through the Saints. So I think they really made a key to at least let's build this run, because if you can stop the run, you at least have a chance. If you can't stop the run, you're done. Like you're just like
over.
Nope. Pass the score, you run to win, and I think like that is just kind of that there are certain things in football that just don't change. It doesn't matter what era you're in, it just doesn't change. And so I think like we even in the quarterback driven era that we have now, the post spread era that we are in now, we had kind of a recommitment to the run game. It's now changing the way that everybody is. So, we're talking about even just nickel play like Alontae Taylor, like you can't play a third corner anymore and not expect to get ran on in your nickel package. Look at the best nickels, the guys that just got paid, right? Jalen Petrie, Kyler Gordon. I don't really count the Jordan Lewis with the Jaguar. I don't know why they gave him that much money for a third corner, but that like he doesn't fit the run. That's a problem, and they will find that out quickly. Like that's a problem. But you get a guy like Petrie, you get a guy like Kyler Gordon, you get a guy that can fit that box. Kenny Moore, not enough people talk about with the Indianapolis. Kenny Moore being able to play. Look, Kenny Moore is no bigger than me. I'm like 5'10", 178 pounds. He's about the same size I am. That dude will come down and strike you. So to me, I think like if you can survive in the box as a nickel, that will be the thing to me. The Justin Reed helps you out a little bit because you can now drop him into the box and he can play. Tyrann Matthews, as we know, can play. He played Sam linebacker for much of his early career. Essentially, we don't call it Sam linebacker, we call it the Badger position, right? But that's what he was playing, right? If you think about it. So to me, I think you have you have two safeties that can play up and back, and you got to find that nickel, and it helps with that run piece that you were talking about, where we're not just saying, look, if we can't, like the Cowboys, if we can't fit with these four guys up front, and hopefully a linebacker can tackle a guy in space, then we're probably in trouble. So that's why you build through the middle.
Speaking of the building, it's funny, we've talked about the Saints draft class so much, we haven't spoken really much at all about the first round pick, Kelvin Banks Jr. Something that was just interesting that I was told a couple of days after they drafted him is that the Saints don't have an idea where they're going to play him yet, which to me was just very, I don't know. Like, I look at it of like, if he's on your board, he's in your cloud. If you've had these evaluations of him, like that like to me, the smart coaching thing would be like, hey, if we end up drafting him, the plan should be to play him maybe here, or play him like they don't know where they're going to play him yet. But just, which is just completely wild to me. But maybe maybe the smart thing to me and Ryan have talked about on the podcast is he's played left tackle. Put him at left tackle. Fuaga was a natural right tackle at Oregon State. It's his natural position. Move him to right tackle. You think you solve your pinning problem at right tackle, potentially have a three-way competition with Penning, Salaverde, and Rodutz for the free agent that they signed from the Titans. Whoever wins that left guard position, there you go. Start your best five. But who are the Saints getting in Kelvin Banks Jr. From Texas?
Yeah, I think he's super athletic. I mean, again, he's you're a first round tackle. I think to me that's especially like when you're in that upper echelon. Very athletic. I think he played. I know that people were a little concerned that against some of these bigger talents, he kind of got stuck in there. There were protection issues just all around for Texas at certain times. I wouldn't necessarily put that on him. I do think you got to pick, though. He's probably going to have to play tackle. They're probably just like you said. It's probably going through the scenarios of if we put him on the left, what does that look? If we put him on the right, can he play on the right? I know people want this to be like Madden, where you just move a guy from the left to the right, but that's not necessarily how that works all the time. It's kind of like your slot can't just be a third corner. It's a different skill set. You're asked to do different things, especially when it comes to how your quarterback is dropping. Your tackles set the depth or the width of your pocket. So that's where you need to have those. Like where's the pocket depth? Is he right-handed quarterback that likes to scramble? So do we need more of kind of like a stagnant guy there? So to me, I think you're getting a guy who's seasoned. He's played against a bunch of different defenses. He's played in a ton of games. And I think that anytime you get a guy like that, it may take a year or two, but I think eventually they'll find that, okay, this guy's going to work for us.
Yeah, I remember Zach Strief was the right tackle for the Saints for a long time. What he said the one great thing about playing with Drew Brees is like he knew whatever the play was, exactly where Drew Brees would be within the QB drop. You know what I'm saying? Like one Mississippi, I know Drew's like right here. So he knew if I could just win 2 seconds, I'm good because Drew's gonna get the ball out. So it's just trying to find that, I guess, that timing and everything with the blocking scheme. And like you said, these young quarterbacks, they like to move. So they might, some move to the left, some move to the right, stuff like that. How do you block that within the, in the offensive lineman scheme and stuff like that? That's going to be interesting. Other than that, like, as far as like the Saints draft, who Who else did they take? I mean, they took some late round guys. I don't know if you're familiar with Devin Neal, the running back out of Kansas. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
he's
they
an
got him in the
interesting
sixth
one.
round.
He's an interesting one. Just I'm from the Kansas City area, so and I'm a Big 12 guy, so I watch. He's been around for a while. Kind of an explosive guy. I don't think not going to overwhelm you with size. Kind of like a Kamara guy though, in a sense that can do a bunch of different things. And so I think that's kind of where. Look, running back is one of those positions. It really doesn't matter where you get taken. They
Yeah,
can pop off at any moment. So I don't think he's a bad one. And then the last one, the Fidel Diggs kid,
yeah,
to me, that is if you look at him, that is 100%. We got this guy on traits. He's
right.
over I think almost 160, runs a 4.5. Typical seventh rounder, inconsistent play, hybrid. He fits that Staley edge though, of where he's not really handing the dirt out. Gives him a guy that can drop into coverage, a few times. He was the Texas A&M defensive line was really, really good. He started at Texas A&M, and then he's a Jersey kid and wanted to move closer to home and went to Syracuse. So he started for 2 years at A&M. In that whole A&M class that we just saw, that has some, two of them.
Yeah, yes, Nick Skirton and Shamar Stewart.
Smart Stewart, yep.
And so he started, and so he really only played 1 year at Syracuse. And so I think, to me, that's something to think of, just in that sense of like, hey, this is a kid that has just traits.
Yeah.
Could end up
Second
being
round.
really good. Could end up just can't get it. He's just a pure pass rusher, or he can only do one thing, and you know how that is in the NFL now. If you can only do one thing, you're not going to be there very long.
No, I remember the Saints took like Al Qadim Muhammad back in 2017, like 6th, 7th round, something like that, and look, he's still playing. He's still in the league.
Bro. Still a
like,
good rotational starter.
It's a good rotational player. Like if you could find that in the 7th round, like
that's a win.
Take that any day.
100%.
The last one I had two more. The one thing that does annoy me about this draft class the most is, I guess, and maybe I understand it maybe on a deeper level, but taking a quarterback at 40, and then besides the weapon in the 6th round, a running back, is not giving him any other weapons at all.
Nothing, bro. Nothing.
Because I'm seeing how the entire other league, with Green Bay adding Matthew Golden to the weapons that they have. You have Ben Johnson with the Bears. They go Colston Loveland, and then round 2 they add Luther Burton. The Browns, adding. It's just almost every other team in the league. It's that had young quarterbacks, regardless of where they are, of how in their hierarchy or where they are as quarterbacks. It's we're not gonna let our quarterback fail. Even the Panthers, they went out and got Bryce Young, Tetairoa McMillan at 8, which was a surprise to some. It just feels like the Saints, they got their quarterback, and it's
we good.
All right, Tyler, you got to
make it enough.
Make it work with your former college teammate Jawan Johnson. Make it work with Chris Olave. Make it work with Rashid Shaheed and AK. That's all you got, buddy. It just seems like it's so contradictory to everything else that every other team in the league did in a very deep running back and tight end draft.
Yeah, it was interesting to me that you really go down and you start looking at it, and they didn't add anything in. I mean, the receiving core. I mean, do we really think Brandon Cooks is going to be the full time? You know what I mean?
Yes, Cody. We know what you mean.
I know, but I'm just. So it's I do get it. Not to even go. I understand. Okay, quarterback. Okay, you took a quarterback. You think maybe this is a guy that can start. Great. Okay, well, 3rd round, are we going to take a guy that you think that can play? They ended up taking 2 defensive guys in the 3rd round, so it's not even a receiver. No, because that is the one thing that you look, and it maybe look. What I'm hoping, it's not hubris with an offensive coach saying, whoever did it last year wasn't doing it right, I'll get it fixed. You hope that's not the case.
And it's bro, you came from Philly. Even in Philly, you had A.J. Brown, you had Devontae Smith, you had Dallas Goedert, you had Saquon.
You're not. Hell, I could call that offense. We would have might have won the Super Bowl. No, that it's not that hard. Like, yeah, so to me, I agree with you. If there is one thing that you are disappointed about or that you could maybe hang your hat on and say, "Hey, I'm going to pin this and I want to show me where this is going to work," it would be that. Because like you mentioned, okay, you got Kelvin Banks, but you don't know where you're going to play him. You said that out loud into the universe, okay? Kamara is getting up there in age. We know running backs. He could fall off the cliff today. We don't know until he starts playing, right? It could be next year. You don't know. You added a 6th-round back. Hopefully he can fit some in there. But you didn't add anything to the receiving core room where it's oft injured. You have Olave. That's great. You could probably argue, is he really a number one receiver? You have some gadget guys that are super fast, but like again, there's not a cohesive plan. So I'm with you. I think that's got to be a concern going into the offseason. Like almost like prove it to me. Show me how this is going to work. I need to see it. I do think. Well, you have your Y and you have your F. Look, they had the bidding war for the tight end, the Jennings kid. I think that there was a lot of interest in him just because that slot tight end is an important position. But I do think like if that's what you're hanging your hat on, I think that's a problem. I think, go look at the Cardinals offense last year where they had Ertz had like 136 targets for 111. Jeez. And look, Marvin Harrison, we know rookie receivers are never really that great, but at least you had a big body out there that could go up and get a ball. But if you get in that situation where like, well, our tight end's our number one guy, I think like you run into with what happened in the Super Bowl. The Eagles said, well, we're going to lock everybody up. We're going to triple team Kelsey. Where are you going to throw the ball? Oh, that's right. You're not. And your run game's non-existent. Okay. Now we're going to.
Oh, you're muted. Cody, you got muted at the very end. You're still muted.
I'm not.
Okay, now you're not.
Okay. Wait, now you are. Oh, you go. There you go.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah. What in the world? Yeah. Anyway, I said that's not the way. That's not the way to build it.
And the Saints don't have Travis Kelsey. They got Jawan Johnson.
Jawan Johnson, your former teammate at Oregon.
Outliers, but I know that's an outlier. But that is just when you think about that. That you start thinking like, okay, where are the situations where that works? Well, there's not many.
It's tough living, man. It's a tough way to live. Hubris, I'm glad you pointed that out because look, Sean Payton loves Sean Payton. Like that's my guy. But he would come up run into that at times too, where he's just like, look, I could take this undrafted wide receiver out or whatever, and we're gonna make it work. And sometimes it was to the offense's demise. So it's gonna be interesting. And look, you can't build Rome in a day. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just got to get what you
9 picks, Ryan. I don't want to hear it, bro. 9 picks. Just like Cody said, like the next round after they draft their quarterback in the 3rd round, they double down in defense, bro. And then you're like, okay, round 4 they have two 4th round picks. Maybe one of them's going to be an offensive player. No. Double down. Okay, all right.
It is a little odd.
Okay, I thought it was just.
It is odd. It is odd for an offensive head coach too to not have anything to do like, hey, I need a guy. Just give me one guy.
Get one. Damn.
Anything else you got, Ryan? I had one more, but this is just more overall. Just who like in the NFL from the draft, like you really like love their draft class, like 1 or 2 teams that you just really enjoy their draft classes.
Though, I was looking at this today. I really kind of like what the Colts did with their draft. I thought they answered. I thought they answered some questions that they needed. I think it's almost an extension of their off season. They've been one of my favorite. I mean, I think Cam Bynum fits what they want. Travarius Ward fits what they want. But then you go even deeper. I really like the kid out of Ohio State. The Tuamalau, that kid is...
Oh, JTT. Sorry. He doesn't like to be called that, but I love JTT. Talk to him at the Combine. Such a great kid.
Yes, he is. I really liked him. You watch him, he played in a system that could do a lot of different things. I think he fits with what they're trying to do. I actually like the Justin Wally kid from Minnesota. I was doing a defensive study and a deep dive on them, and I thought that kid is, we're going to look back and be like, how did that kid not go in the second or first round? I think he has a chance to go up against Jalen Jones and maybe start opposite Charvarius Ward. And then I like Tyler Warren. I think is going to be. I think he's going to be a weapon in the NFL. I know that people are like, what is he? But I think Shane Steichen. I believe in him. I think that. I really liked what they did. They found guys. I think they found guys in situations that can do some things for them on defense. I know it's not sexy because like I'm not looking necessarily for like who had the best first round pick. Like your draft is defined by depth. I think they found depth and they found guys in later rounds that might be a potential starter. And then you add a guy like Warner. I really like them. I thought they did a really good job.
No, I agree. And Tyler Ward, like there was a ton of discussion about Tyler Warren, Tyler Ward versus Colston Loveland and all that. I thought Tyler Warren just fell like to a perfect spot. I thought, like where he went to the team he went, I thought that
he'll be in.
It just made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he'll be moved around. Sense. It's that Eagles offense that he'll be moved around. I mean, think about Goddard and what they were able to do with him. Like I just think like I think he's a better athlete. I think that he has higher level traits. So I mean, to me, I think. That was the one when I'm just kind of going through and looking at these. I feel like they got a starter at corner in round 3, and then obviously you have a dynamic tight end piece that's going to help their situation.
What are your thoughts of one of your favorite players, Starks, going to the Ravens of all places?
It's like if he would have gone to the Eagles, I would have said the same thing. Of like, oh, okay, well, the rich just got rid of it. I mean, it's kind of say, like the Ravens, or had he gone to like Seattle, even the Chargers with Minter, any of those Ravens guys, I would have been like that. And he goes there. I think he'll end up playing for them. Hey, look, that was a situation of, hey, you're gonna come in. You don't have to be a day one starter for us, but every time we need Hamilton to move near the box, you're going to be the deep safety, and now we've got that figured out. And to me, I was like, that was easy button for them that he fell to them.
Every year. They do it every year.
Every year. Every year.
Them and the Eagles, like they just luck up on these guys. I mean, that's why too. Like the Eagles had a great draft, but I don't want to talk about him because it's like there's something he's doing something.
I'm sorry, bro.
He's,
like
John Campbell.
Okay, all right,
quick, whatever, man. Just
he had too much fun with Bond. Not to bring that up again. He went and got Campbell. Sorry, I had to say before we got off.
Cool, that's fine.
What I'm just doing those guys.
Like I'm thinking of that Fangio defense. Bond, Campbell, their secondary. You got Nolan Smith. You got Jalen good luck.
Jackson Hunt. Just like, oh man.
And they let guys walk, and they're just going to be right back in there, and it's going to be just as fine. Because Quentin Mitchell's only going to get better. DeJean with a full season, off season is going to get better. So it's like, I don't want to. It's like me being a Broncos fan with the Chiefs. It's like you can't just win. It's like, can we just have one win? No, we can't. Okay. They have the worst offense ever, and it's like receiving court ever, and it's like they still went to the Super Bowl. And it's like, what the
Look, man, Broncos got R.J. Harvey, so I don't want to hear nothing, man.
Yeah,
that was my guy.
And Jade, Jade Barron, I thought.
A dog.
I said, I was talking on a Broncos podcast probably about a month before the draft, and I said, don't be surprised if they target some nickel. And sure enough, they went Jade Barron. So I looked like a genius, but I was like, Jaquan McMillan's good, but he's like a one-trick, like he's a man guy, right? But if you want to do some different things, and what you can do with Barron is like you can move him anywhere.
Anywhere. He reminds me of, man, I don't want to say because I feel like CD Deuce in like his first 2 to 3 seasons was just, he reminds me so much of like CD Deuce, but like a bigger version of CD Deuce, and just playing that nickel position, that Brian Branch, just put him wherever you want on the field, and just maybe one day be able to talk about players like that in the Saints light again. Now we're talking about Kelvin Banks and Danny Stutzman. Here we go. All right.
I'm sorry, man. I'm trying to have fun. I'm just trying to.
Oh no, bro. Oh no, bro. It's just not a shot at you. I love talking ball. I just gotta come back to reality. I will say this, and me and Ryan talked about this as we let you go, and I'll get their thoughts on this. I'm excited for the Tyler Shuck Spencer Rattler quarterback competition. Like that is something that like legitimately excites me because if you just frame it right, it's in theory it should be kind of even in some degrees because both of them are learning a brand new offense, so that should put them at even. But as Ryan and I have said, Spencer Rattler has gone against NFL defenses. He's going against NFL speed. That's just you can't account for that. Like I'm just
Right.
sorry, you just cannot account for that no matter what. Um, how would you just potentially see that quarterback? And I'm assuming Derek Carr is not going to be on this team. I need one thing in this offseason to go my way. I need one thing. So how would you potentially see the quarterback competition potentially playing out? Because listen, there's one thing I'm excited for is seeing this quarterback competition playing out in training camp and in the preseason.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think Rattler comes in day one as a starter just because he's a professional. He's been there. He's seen it. He's done it. I think the only thing that you can maybe think about is just that that's a second round quarterback that was handpicked by the head coach. And so if that ends up being the trump card or they're even, that's who's going to get
For sure.
get the nod.
Yeah, which makes
No
sense.
question. Which makes sense. And plus, it's kind of easier. Like even if Spencer Rattler got the start for the season, it's easier to go from him to Shuck than go to Shuck and say Shuck has two disaster
Yeah.
games. Then you got to go to
And
Rattler.
that
Then it's a
Rattler-
big controversy.
People don't think about that, but that is like you don't. But if you're thinking about it in terms of like, I'm trying to save this kid's confidence. I want to make
Yeah.
sure this kid is our quarterback by week 18. Not starting him in a situation like that. Now that's not necessarily fair for Rattler, but you know, crazier things have happened.
Man, Rattler picking the short end of the stick.
I know, man. I know.
He
It's
used
just
he used to it.
in
He's
everything.
like, can I like play behind 9 Amazon drivers? Like, can I?
So it's like but that's a good point of like it is a much easier if that's the transition piece.
Yes.
But here's what I think. I think Rattler probably gets a lot of the preseason starts, and then you just see it.
Interesting.
If by the end of the preseason, Chuck's getting a lot, or like you're hearing a lot of things of like, well, he's actually getting more one reps. It will be really interesting when they do the dual camps when they play with another team on site, who's getting the first team reps. Because a lot of times these preseason games, that's glorified practice. And it doesn't.
Right.
They don't. It has no bearing on what they're doing. It's if we're in camp with another team and we're practicing them with them for a whole week, that's where the real action is. It's not actually what goes on that Friday Saturday game.
Those joint practices are going to be so
Yeah.
important, and we'll see if the Saints open any of them up, man. Like last year, none of the practices were open.
And that's why they don't want those joint practices because that's when the real dirty work gets going. I mean, that to me, that's why NFL guys are so weird. I mean, like you go to a practice and it's like, bust your phone out, I'm kicking you. You know, you're just like, what am I like? What are you? You know, everybody gets your film.
Right.
Wait.
Literally anybody can get your film. It's on NFL. It's on NFL Pro.
Oh my goodness,
Please.
Cody, this was amazing. It did make me feel a
Amazing,
little.
man.
It did make me feel a little better about the Saints draft class. It did, which
I think they're building on defense. I think that's just to kind of put a bow on it. That's kind of the thought process now is either you have a young quarterback and you just try and load him up with talent to make it easier for him and hey, we just aren't going to play defense. Or you go ahead and build up that defense while you've got a young quarterback and then hey, let's get the defense right and then next year we'll get the offense right and then now we'll kind of be in that spot.
Okay, one more. If they're picking top 5, top 3, give me some quarterback names you like for next year.
Oh my goodness. Don't put me on spot.
Sorry. Don't worry, we'll bring it back if they're
Okay,
picking
yeah.
top 3, top 5 for
I got you.
We'll talk about Drew Aller
Yes,
and
yeah.
Arch next.
There you go.
Anyway, Cody, this was great. This was fantastic. Phil Vision Pro. Match Quarters. Make sure you give Cody some love. He's great, amazing guest as always. We appreciate you, man. Thank you for your time. Thanks for everyone for tuning in, watching. With that, we are out.
Peace.